Okay, I'm Jack Roscetti, and I guess part of this series of discussing 50s, 60s culture, and I'm here in my salon with my friend Richard. Richard?
I'm Richard Burkert. I run the Johnstown Area Heritage Association, but happen to have lived during that period, talking about the 50s and 60s counterculture and the extent to which some of that was, pushed, pushed into the zone of banned books and just trying to remove some of these tendencies from American culture. But I guess where I come into the picture is late in the 60s. Jack is a few years older than I am, but we've talked previously. In fact, we've done workshops where we talked about growing up in the late 60s and going to Woodstock or the counterculture and some of the rejection of more traditional American ways of life. And so we're going to try to pick that up today, and Jack's going to show us some of his vast holdings here at the salon.
I was a part of the 50s where jazz and folk music was sort of ending when I picked up on it, when the Beatles and the Stones and the British invasion. Yeah. So every culture changed, the music changed, and I jumped aboard and immediately got involved with cutting hair, went to beauty school, and followed that path, and the music totally changed from Ricky Nelson and Fats Domino to rock and roll. And so anyway, that was a big part of my journey, and I'm sure everybody's journey was kind of different in the sense of what you did with it. So I got into the art aspect of it and traveled and really involved myself in haircutting, being a musician, yoga, eating better from the experiences of San Francisco and Chicago and New York, and bringing that all back to Johnstown, where I lived, where we participated in the whole culture. And so that's my part of it, that.
I had a fairly conventional upbringing in the suburbs of Harrisburg. Came to IUP. I came to Southwestern Pennsylvania for college, but after by the time I was a senior in high school, it was apparent that things were going on that seemed to me more authentic, more exciting, and then what was really my experience growing up. That it was secure, it was safe, it was conventional. Followed a similar route to what Jack said about his path. Following the music. I had a close group of friends who followed music and were really excited by the Beatles and some of the earlier British invasion acts. And then by the later part of the 60s, we had pretty developed tastes. I think one of the things that probably changed my life was going to Woodstock in August 1969 when I was 17 years old, and being with 500,000 like-minded or the Woodstock. I was young and went to see some rock bands, but for many people it was such an affirmation, and most of them were older than I was, but such an affirmation. There were people that had other values out there, And they have anti-Vietnam War, theme was really pronounced there, and an alternative to conventional American, way of life. The consumerism, the overtly anti-war, very anti-racist, and it did begin to introduce you to some other aspects of culture, including food and other cultural items. And then there was also a political element to Woodstock, which isn't commonly discussed. But I think what was really influential were the MCs from the stage, the announcers, really, talking about, turn this into, the spearhead for a movement. 500,000 of you somehow got here in this time, and kind of helped to define that age. And some of it was cultural, and some of it was political. So one of the things that Jack, I find amazing, has done throughout his life is all the stuff I looked at, read, set aside. Jack's kept it and kept it in good. So he's curated his generation. And I understand you're going to share some of this stuff with me.
Yeah, like I was subscribing to the Village Voice in the early 70s,
Yeah.
and got the first Rolling Stone with John Lennon on the cover, and all my travels, I mean, all the poets that wrote books, and all the great old writers, I bought that up, and you could really get a lot of value on the important writers in this country and about what was going on at that time. So if you want me to show you some of the things.
All that started long before I was paying attention. The beat poets, and again, the music of the 50s.
The Prison Letters of George Jackson is a terrific book. And of course, Jack Kerouac and Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, which were very much revolutionaries.
Yeah, we'll take them individually. Yeah, Jack Kerouac, kind of, I mean, he's older than me. He died very early. But On the Road was a banned book, as I understand, and really captured the kind of frantic, driven quality of that whole period, that whole experience. And I don't know. I remember, the stories about that, where he put a roll of newsprint into a typewriter and just kept typing, for till it all came out.
Right,
And,
I got it. I mean, I picked right up on the freedom of it and traveling. And then, I traveled to San Francisco and went to City Lights with Lawrence Ferlinghetti. This is a very famous book. Another Ferlinghetti. And of course, there was poets like Dylan Thomas that I got a lot of information out of. And of course, Richard Burkert and Norman Mailer, Armies of the Night. Abby Hoffman's Letters from the Underground is very important. And if I can go over here and show you some more literature on the Beat generation. Ginsberg's Howl, very important.
that's a folio. I mean, that's beautiful.
I know.
I mean, what did what?
And then we have Brodigan again, a book by on the Black Panthers, and I got an autograph when Bobby Seale came to UPJ to speak, and he had a cookbook out, and he signed this book for me, and that was pretty terrific. And then we had artists like Robert Crumb, which was important, and
They did an extent. Do you remember about 10-15 years ago, Carnegie Museum of Art did a major respective.
I was there.
That was that 3 galleries to Art Crumb.
And then I have The Art of Rock, which is a terrific book on
Album covers, yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing book.
Well, weirdly, this has all entered mainstream culture. Westmoreland Museum of Art
And here's a beautiful book
did an album
called
cover.
Hippie. And there's a boatload of stories here about how the 60s went on and what we were doing and participating in. So then I have all this resisting the draft stuff. Oh yeah, here's an old Village Voice. And some of the, this is the Resistance. And here's some material out of San Francisco called the other, actually it's the East Village.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then this is The Draft is in Trouble, and a manual for draft age immigrants to Canada. And so anyway, I had all this material and shared it with everybody I knew. And then of course, all these important other books like Folk Music in America, Angela Davis writings. This book, Now Be Here, is a sensational book. Of course, Mr. Kerouac and Partners and Beat Generation. And The Connoisseur's Handbook of Marijuana. And of course, Tim Leary's Psychedelic Experience, which is a pretty good book. And now we will go and show some records. Well, I had a great band behind him, and really came up with something that's lasted
It
till now.
was really challenging music. It was really advanced.
So this is where the underbelly music was before the hippies took it over. Not the
rock
style of music,
yeah.
but and then we had groups like the Fugs, who I totally loved.
Yeah,
Played
they
on
weren't so
steps
much
of-
musicians as they were, commentators. They were fun.
Agitators.
Agitators, troublemakers.
So the albums like Led Zeppelin, of course Janis Joplin's Big Cheap Thrills. Nuggets, Acid Rock, here's Phil Oakes, Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant.
I got a great story about Alice's Restaurant. I was, Jack was saying one of the issues, that was really for broadening your experience was traveling. And I remember going to Europe for 3 months without any, planned itinerary or schedule. And I'd been in Europe for traveling for 2 months, and I happened to be in Florence, and saw they were showing Alice's Restaurant, which I'd never seen, and it was like I finally gotten homesick, and then that was when I saw Alice's Restaurant. It was
Cool.
like a second run theater in Florence. So yeah, that was when I started to miss home.
Well, here's this big time album, and loved it, and they just did the 50th anniversary, and this is Mr. Captain Beefheart.
Yeah, now
This
that's someone that was not even close to mainstream, but that's
well,
the
he and
really.
Frank Zappa got along.
Oh yeah,
very well.
they were.
And then this is
challenging,
the
too.
British stuff, Country Joe and the Fish, of course, magnificent album. Is it with
They were really political.
And then I have Lenny Bruce,
Really?
What I Was Arrested For. I mean, look at that album. And here's Brothers, it's a Taj Mahal original soundtrack. It's a very cool album. And I don't know why I'm just missing. And then there's Rastafari stuff. So that's some of the things. And I have my hippie clothes. I mean, I didn't buy this to look good around. I wore it, and then years went on, and of course I still have it.
Gotcha.
I can't sell or.
I'm surprised you still have that Captain.
Oh yeah,
America
right. I
vest.
mean, how cool is this? When I used to drive my motorcycle, this was really a showstopper. And here's some other ones, Richard. I remember I bought this jacket off of a guy in New York City selling, on the street, and loved it. And
That's kind of
still
a work
around.
of art, yeah. It's,
And then here's some bell bottoms and some hippie shirts, and now I actually wear those.
yeah.
And
His pants are great.
this is my famous Bob Dylan, some of this, and some rock and roll shirts. That's what we have here. We have Stones,
Four shorts, yeah.
Motorhead, and it's another shirt I always wear, Stones, and these are actually Stones shirts that I got at the concert. This
Yeah,
isn't
right. Drawer shirts, yeah.
Led Zeppelin, Poison, Wandy, The Dead, Ramones,
Oh.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and of course, the best is Mr. John Lennon. So that's my, some of my clothes and some of my books and some of my records. So that's the journey, and it still continues. Oh, and some, I actually wore these.
David Bowie, you wore those.
I wear those, yeah, they're mine. And I would really wear these too, so. Bought these in San Francisco.
When did you go to San Francisco?
Excuse me?
When did you go to San Francisco?
I was there in the 70s
Okay.
and the 80s.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That was,
Early 70s, so everybody.
North Beach,
Yeah,
City Light.
everybody had to go out there for a while.
But yeah,
Just
we went to
visit.
Haight-Ashbury, and it was funny, there was like kind of leftover hippies. And
Yeah.
it's like how Shadyside decided that it went from like a retail area to a hippie thing,
Yeah.
and it didn't last long.
It was there was a short.
But people
window.
wanted to belong to things and get involved, and they thought that just by being at those
Being
famous
at this
things.
spot, something was
So, I
going
mean,
to
that's
happen.
like going to the Village Vanguard even now. It's just sort of like, you went and played there? For God's sake.
Yeah.
Famous.
I used to go to the
famous.
Vanguard a lot when I.
Right,
was in
and
New York City.
I mean, the Fillmore East and all these venues that rock and roll. I remember seeing Janis Joplin in the front row with Santana, and nobody knew who
Santana was. I saw them at
And
Woodstock.
she actually scared me. I mean, I'm kind of looking, and she was up there belting this out.
Too intense.
Yeah, it was great, but like
Yeah.
Santana came out.
Yeah, no.
And I
They were
remember
shocking.
I was a
Looks like
friend
they
of
were.
Michael Shapiro, who was owned a National Record Mark, and that's how we got those
Yeah.
tickets.
Yeah.
And we, in the afternoon, we were dancing to Santana, some of what the
Yeah.
album with the line said on the
Right,
cover.
right.
And we just thought, wow, what a group.
That's it. It was just-
So anyway, concerts, I remember being in front of Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin, Three Rivers Stadium, 1971. I remember my friend and I, John, we walked in and said, "Where are we gonna go?" And I said, "I'm going up to the front."
Yeah.
So anyway, right there it was, and I was determined to be a part of pretty much
What was going on right there?
yeah, I mean,
Front and center.
right. I didn't want to be in like at Wembley Stadium and like a mile
Yeah.
and a half away.
Well, that Stadium Rock was.
So I did that my entire
Nice.
life. I was always backstage, close, knew people who
Yeah.
could get me that. Worked in Chicago with Jam Productions. My wife's brother catered rock concerts, so I got to meet
Oh, that's
Donna
right.
and
Yeah. Okay.
Lenny Kravitz, and so I had a great career with being able to get close and meet these
Meet
people.
people.
Chuck Berry and the Cure. So had a good life.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, you were saying.
All right, this story begins in the early 60s as I was cutting hair and living my life in Johnstown. And
buying books that were relevant to what was going on in the country at that time, and I guess these are the banned books that we were reading and experiencing and finding out how we were going to proceed through this period of time. And the beat poets were obviously right there, and Timothy Leary and Abby Hoffman, the Yippies, the book on resisting the draft, and so these things were essential in our lives with the music, and the books just piled up on our shelves. I still own them, and I showed them to you earlier. So it's amazing that these books were powerful in the sense that I don't know if we have that kind of writing going on today, because times have changed. So I have all these books, and they've been with me in my collection of other art and books, and so I was happy to share that with you. And the 60s ended. And then I had an opportunity that I went to Chicago, and my brother-in-law was catering rock concerts, and this is what it's like to be able to leave your little hometown, and it was all about, Tony was catering rock concerts for Jam Productions, and I helped him, and I also was cutting hair in Newtown in Chicago, and we were at a restaurant, and we were sitting there, and there was a table of girls next to us, and they approached us, and she asked me if I was in the Three Dog Night, and I said, yeah, we are, because they were playing that night, and she went back, and they were talking, and I went over, and I said, no, I'm just Jack and Tony. So she said, hey, we're doing a commercial for Butterfinger candy bars. You guys should audition. And she said it's on Ontario, downtown Chicago. We showed up, and I got it. And it was me being a hippie, and they came by in a car. I was on a bicycle, and I gave the peace sign for that segment of the commercial. It was like a Pepsi commercial, and they had other ideas of a football player, a cheerleader, and a guy in a pilot. So what it did, it afforded me to come back to Johnstown and open up my salon with the money I made on that commercial. So it's the 70s started out real good just by that example of being somewhere where in being into rock and roll afforded me my career.
Did you always intend to come back to Johnstown to do
No,
that?
my wife was going to college there. She started out at Penn State and moved to Chicago, and that got me to go to Chicago. And so, so I grew up there. I mean, there was a big, wide, beautiful city, and a lot going on, and we were in the scene by working with the concert venue of Jam Productions, and got to meet Chuck Berry and the Stones, and so that whole thing is I carried back to Johnstown with me to where I stayed for years, and like I said, I made enough money to open my salon in Chicago. It was very expensive to do that, and I ended up at the Conrad building, and 38 years went by, and I brought all my accessories with me, and so that's a career.
Nice.
Hmm.
Do you have a photograph of that time period when you made that commercial, or?
I do. I'm going to have to go get it.
Yeah, great.
So there is me in my salon, and this is 1973. I just began my haircutting days, and that poster of Mick Jagger is still here with me. So what a journey.
Yeah.
Hey Ray, hey Sugar, tell them who we are. Well, we're big rock singers, we got golden fingers, and we're loved everywhere we go. That sounds like us. We sing about beauty and we sing about truth at $10,000 a show. Right. We take all kind of pills to give us all kind of thrills, but the thrill we've never known is the thrill that'll get you when you get your picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone. Wanna see my picture on the cover? Stone. Wanna buy 5 copies for my mother? Yeah. Wanna see my smiling face on the cover of the Rolling Stone? That's a very, very good idea.
I got a freaky old lady named a Cocaine Kitty who embroideries on my jeans. I got my poor old gray-haired daddy driving my limousine.
Now it's all designed to blow our minds, but our minds won't really be blown like the blow that'll get you when you get your picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone. Wanna see our pictures on the cover? Stone. Wanna buy 5 copies for our mother? Yeah. Wanna see my smiling face on the cover of the Rolling Stone? Hey, I know how. Rock and roll! Oh, that's beautiful. We got a lot of little teenage blue-eyed groupies who'll do anything we say. We got a genuine Indian guru. He's teaching us a better way. We got all the friends that money can buy, so we never have to be alone. And we keep getting richer, but we can't get our picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone. Wanna see my picture on the cover? Stone. Wanna buy 5 copies for my mother? Stone. Wanna see my smiling face on the cover of the Rolling Stone? On the cover of the Rolling Stone. Wanna see my picture on the cover? We ain't on the cover, baby. Wanna buy 5 copies for my mother? Wanna see my smiling face on the cover of the Rolling Stone? Right up front, man. I can see it now. We'll be on the front smiling, man.